Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with Brian Gardner. And Brian is one of these guys who, came out of distribution, so he's got a great background in distribution. But, he really attacked, years ago, really attacked that CRM world with a vengeance and spent some time, kind of trying to develop his own and looked at what's out on the shelf there. But ultimately came and created something that worked well for him. But now what he focuses on is working with companies and trying to help them understand why they want a CRM and what is the purpose. And I think that's really an interesting point, is that many people go and say, hey, I need Salesforce, or I need dynamic CRM, or I need a product first, and then back into, okay, what am I going to do with it once they've already bought, applied, and tried to implement? And I think this is where they get themselves in some trouble. And what I like about where Brian comes from is he says, okay, wait a minute. Let's start back at the beginning and say, all right, why do you want this? And what is your intended use? What do you think you're going to accomplish with this? Or what are the pain points that this is going to solve? And so I really appreciate when technology people, or at least those that are around technology heavily, is they slow down and ask those big questions of what is this going to solve? What is the business use case first? And then let's apply the best solution for it. So that's kind of the sum and substance, of what he and I spoke about. Of course, we threw in all the other stories that we have. But anyway, it was a pleasure speaking with Brian, and I really hope you all enjoyed the episode. This episode was brought to you by my friends at Profit2. I invited their founder, Dave Roller, on the show to talk about their pricing philosophy and maybe spill the secret sauce. Over the course of my interview with Dave, I found that his methods were much in alignment with the manual digging process I've shared with clients over the years. His algorithms just did it a whole lot faster and easier than I could. It also helps that he comes from a distribution background and understands the needs of the wholesale distributor. Since Profit2 is a software as a service, and the operative word being service, they're uniquely positioned to provide real horsepower to your internal team. Come take a look at what Profit2 can do for you at www.profit2.com. That's profit with a number 2. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Well, hey, Brian, welcome to Distribution Talk, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me.
No, I appreciate it, Jason. Looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, fantastic. Well, if you wouldn't mind, just for the audience, just share a little bit about your background, how you kind of got started in the world of distribution and ultimately into CRM. So take it away.
All right. I'll try to keep this to the short version, right?
Okay. Sounds good.
I always open up when asked this question, or if I'm doing training to a sales team in industrial sales, I always open up by saying I was an SOB. And so that seems to get their attention right off the bat, right?
Yeah,
so,
as was I. I totally understand that expression, my man. So
I was an SOB. I said, okay, you want to go around the room? And everyone's like, well, I don't know if I can say that. I mean, what? And I said, come on, tell me. I said, well, I was the son of the boss.
Right.
I grew up in an industrial distribution rep and service company in the Gulf Coast. Mm-hmm. We were servicing the chemical, refinery, pulp and paper, oil and gas marketplace. Full breadth of industrial supplies, equipment, pressure, level, temperature, flow, instrumentation, and process control, and valve automation, actually. Anyway, long story short, I grew up in that business, from stocking shelves in the warehouse, unpacking boxes, to inside sales, outside sales, product specialist, and then ultimately VP of sales. And so I grew up in that industrial market. I'm a big believer of process. And I'm a believer of team selling. In an environment like that, industrial sales is, team selling with all the different touch points. But so my background was in industrial sales. Started out as an SOB, and then worked my way ultimately to VP of sales.
So, Brian, how many did you have other siblings in the business?
No, I had one sister, and she didn't want to be a DOB.
There you go. Fair enough. Now, just out of curiosity, how early did you start?
Realistically, I mean, in the business, working summers at high school, and
Yeah.
It's funny. I used to play with on vacations. I used to play with demo equipment. My dad would have demo equipment in his trunk of his car,
Sure. Sure.
magnetic level gauges to thermometers to pressure devices. So, when I was little, I started playing with industrial type equipment as demo equipment.
It's funny. I just shared this last week with some folks. It's like, family vacations were around a trade show. I mean, it's like if the trade show was in Hawaii, that was a banner time. But
Oh, that was a good time.
that was a good trade show, but I did get to see some pretty amazing places and stay in some nice places because of trade shows. But yeah, I totally, I totally understand where you're coming from, man. So you jumped into, the sales side. You gravitated towards that sales side of the business. And remind me, what software were you all running at the time? Or
Well, we were running. We had a back end system, a JD Edwards ERP system.
Okay. Okay.
The greens printouts that would come out of their system.
Oh yeah. And somebody reminded me about the humming sound of dot matrix.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so from the front end side, I guess what I call the sales side, we were just sticky notes and Ouija boards, and we'd started implementing some. I'm really going to date myself. Some Lotus Notes type of Excel type sheets and
I remember Lotus Notes. Sure.
Fox Pro. I built a Fox Pro database to track projects and quotes that were working to be able to slice and dice, And then PIM, personal information devices came out. Remember the Palm Pilot?
I do. Yeah.
Started putting some of that in the hands of people. Yeah. And then we migrated to different versions of contact management systems, from Act to Maximizer. Yeah. Whatever we could get our arms around.
I started on Act. Yeah. I thought Act was actually a pretty good tool when it came out. I was pretty impressed, actually.
Yeah. So that's the software that we used back then. And again, I'm the late 80s, mid 80s, late 80s, and into the early 90s.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I remember all of those little iterations. And it's funny. There was a time where actually I think I kept Palm Pilots and Blackberries and things. I had all this old hardware, and I finally got rid of it. But
that could probably be selling.
It probably could. I probably gave up my retirement fund right there. So tell me a little bit about those early days of contact management in the industrial space that you were trying to get your arms around.
Well, what I really was trying to get my arms around, so if I back up a little bit more, was, we were a team selling environment. What I mean by that was we had different roles that were touching the customer: inside sales, outside sales. We had product specialists. We had a service arm, service team out in the field, customer service, entering orders, talking to customers. So we had all these touch points. And, what I found was in the early days, contact management was great for a person. It wasn't great for a team.
Right.
And so I wanted to really get our team involved with sharing and leveraging information. So at the time, CRM was not even an acronym back then. No. It was SFA. SFA, Salesforce Automation, was just coming onto the market. Mm-hmm. And I said, I really want some of that for my sales team. Mm-hmm. So that's what really got me into this, was trying to take all these islands of data in people's heads on a Palm Pilot that was, and bring everyone together on one source of the truth, so to speak. And so that was the start of me getting involved in CRM, was wanting to do that.
So what was kind of the first step in doing that and starting to bring them together? Because I'm looking back, I'm like, okay, we had these contact management systems, and they were individualized. I think your point there is well taken. And, some adoption, some people that really did not like it whatsoever. Now, early on, how did you get salespeople to actually use something like this?
Well, okay. So again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was easy. And again, you've got the bell curve. You've got people take to this, early adopters. You've got middle of the road, and you got your laggers with anything you do, right? But, I guess fast forwarding, it's constantly promoting the why and promoting the whole team collaboration, and, and giving something back to every role within the company, such that the outside salespeople feel like they're getting something back versus just putting it into the system, vice versa, across all the different roles. So again, it must be positioned as a team solution. And that was, back then, not knowing what I know today, but back then, I guess that's what I was really striving for, were two things. I say this to companies that I work with. As we go through this journey, the CRM journey, wherever you are in that journey, if you can answer these two questions when you talk about something you need or want or expect your team to do with CRM, and that is these two questions. Does it help us better manage the front end of the sales process, sales cycle? Okay. With visibility process standards such that we can manage that front end of the sales process, everything before the order or even the quote. I view the quote as the front end of the back end.
Okay.
And then does it help us better manage the front end? And then the second thing is, does it allow us to efficiently and effectively share and leverage information as a team? Taking all of that tribal knowledge that is in people's heads, notebooks or wherever it might be, and trying to put it all in one source that we can leverage it. Example. Let's say you go into the system and again, you got all these touch points, inside sales, outside marketing, service, touching a customer. How nice is it, again, to go into the system in the CRM and be able to see a 360 view of everything that's going on with that customer by anyone in the company who's touching it. So you've got to constantly promote the why and the value that people will get back from the data, that they're just not putting data in. So does it help us better manage the front end of the sales cycle? That's where CRM plays, right? That's in CRM's wheelhouse, that whole front end. From lead qualification to qualifying the lead, working the opportunity through the process to ultimately the RFQ. The question I always ask companies are, when that RFQ comes out, did you drive the process or did your competitor drive the process and you're nothing but a third bid? So let's make sure we're driving the process. We have visibility and we're making sure we're positioning ourselves for when that RFQ comes out. And again, that's where CRM plays.
Yeah. I mean, and again, there's varying degrees of acceptance, adoption, reluctance on there. But again, going back to when you were that VP of sales and trying to, come up with how do we build the tools that you had out there, the off the shelf stuff wasn't really, it really wasn't up to snuff, at least what you were asking for.
Well, yeah. And again, the companies that have, team selling environments, typically medium to long sales cycles. Yeah, you've got your MRO or your turn type transactional business.
Sure.
They've also got longer sales cycles. You got multiple influencers on the sale. You've got multiple people influencing that sale within an organization. You got multiple team members involved in that sale. So the more complex a company gets, again, is where I think CRM really plays out. And off the shelf, even the sales forces of the world and dynamics of the world today, I mean, they're not specific. You have to tweak it to your needs. And so, I think it's important to really hone in on, what are you going to focus on with CRM within your company? That's something that I really, really focus on when I'm talking with clients that want to do this CRM journey, no matter where they are. It might be a redo, right? It might be CRM 2.0 or 3.0 redo. You got to first get your arms around, what do you want to accomplish? What's the value or goal? Or what are the gaps that you're wanting to shore up with processes and procedures and visibility that CRM can bring to the table? And, anyway, you've got to start with the end in mind, right?
Right. Yeah. So what were the big things, those gaps, the big challenges that you saw when you were looking at your team and you said, what do I want to accomplish here?
Yeah. The biggest thing was inside and outside sales communicating on the same page. Inside sales that I found in an industrial marketplace, inside sales typically are touching customers or prospects multiple times than an outside salesperson.
Right.
And so how do we leverage those touch points, and how do we leverage and share those touch points so the outside can be aware of those touch points to maximize them, right? If someone calls in from ABC Chemical, and the inside sales might think, oh, that's just a normal call. Well, the outside salesperson might have been trying to call on that person for the last 3 months, and they could use that call as the conduit or the crack in the door to get in to see that person, right?
For sure.
Or they called about some replacement part. Well, a salesperson needs visibility of that. So they say, well, why is this part replacing? Maybe I need to go look at that application and become more proactive with that, and become a solution salesperson than just taking orders, And so taking that data, for sharing and leveraging. So that's one of the biggest gaps. Another gap was back to getting our arms around the front end of the sales cycle. I mean, we needed to understand what's coming down the pipeline with regards to these projects and making sure that we're getting the most wallet share that we can on a project with the breadth of our product. So when a project was identified, I wanted to make it visible by everyone in the company so we can make sure we're maximizing it. Mm-hmm. We might have had product specialists, let's say, or we might have had industry specialists that needed to know that and just really work as a team to maximize, again, our wallet share of our products and services on that. And if we didn't have that visibility until the RFQ hit the desk, we were way too late, right?
Right. Absolutely.
One more big thing for me was as an industry rep distributor, it was important that I wanted to make sure the manufacturers knew that we were the best sales arm for them. And so one of the goals that I wanted to do with CRM was to be proactive with serving up data to them to let them know what we're working on. Mm-hmm. that when they came in to make sales calls, we knew exactly where we were going. We were taking rifle shots where we were going. We knew what the problems were. I put them in the positions and in front of customers that could help advance the sale. I had all that information so we could be very, very proactive when they came in.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, I'm a huge fan of these products here, but what I have experienced, with different clients and, different groups that I facilitate is talking about that implementation process, and the adoption process actually is the bigger challenge that a lot of these folks see. They're committing to a fairly decent size investment sometimes when they get involved with them. Although there are more economical ways to, of course, to go about it. But yeah, it's the adoption side. So, I mean, when you're working on a project like this, how do you kind of overcome some of those little hurdles?
No. It's a great question. It's first thing that I implemented probably about 7-8 years ago, which, when you do things in life, you're like, oh, wow, aha. And this is one of them. And that is, I feel anyway, I created an audit or an assessment program that when a company is looking at CRM, I suggest that they go through this process, this audit or assessment process. And it's okay, what is this? At the high level, obviously you can visualize that via audit or assessment, but the key is that I require that all the different roles of the company are involved in this process. It's not management sitting closed doors doing this. It's all of their roles, inside sales roles represented, outside sales, customer service, marketing, product specialists, VP of sales, operations. They're all involved in this audit or assessment. And what that audit or assessment goes through from the sales pursuit side, CRM and front end side, is understanding the gaps or inefficiencies. So anyway, we go through that. What comes out of that is a list of gaps or inefficiencies that they gave, not me, they gave, and then we run it through a matrix model to determine the low-hanging fruit and what should we focus on for phase one. And from the very beginning, they're involved now, Jason. They're involved in this. And then we put forth the plan and start executing, which obviously there's a lot of devils in the details with that. But the key is that they're involved from the front end of this. They don't just show up one day and say, here's your CRM login. And then here's another big thing. You can promote this so much is that there needs to be two things that I found as common denominators. You must promote the why, constantly promote the why.
Yeah.
They need to be reinforced to the why. And then there at the end of the day, there needs to be what I call a CEO for CRM. Needs to be driving this process. Typically a sales management minded person that understands the bigger picture of what this is about from the sales pursuit side. And that CEO for CRM is kind of carrying the CRM flag through this whole journey. And then even after you're up and running, that becomes very important to make sure you're living up to what the expectations and the adoption levels are.
You mentioned the why, and I'm a huge advocate of really getting your arms around purpose and why, to achieve buy-in. I mean, that's really kind of where, I think that lives. But if you look at those different stakeholders you talked about, different teams and whatnot, the why changes for each one of them. I mean, and is that what you've seen so far in your
No question. Because when I break that down, we break it by role. So what this audit does is we go around and we break down each role: inside sales, outside sales, marketing, product specialist, VP of sales, and we identify the gaps from that role. So if we're doing an analysis of your role, basically you're grading yourself or your team, your group. And if you're on the other side, you're grading the gaps of your communication with that role.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So when we all put this together, it's really everyone's gaps based on how they interact with each other. That's another thing, that I say is CRM stands for customer relationship management in the real world. I think it also means, change management, but that's another topic. But most people, when they say CRM, it's to help us better manage our customers, our external customers. That's what they're thinking. The Dows, the Shells, the Exxons.
Sure. Right? Yeah.
But guess what? All of you in the room here, when I get them together in this audit, all of you are customers to each other. So let's figure out how we're going to work together for each other being customers to each other. And CRM, that's in CRM's wheelhouse as well.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Because you're right. Everybody does think externally, outside the four walls.
Correct.
Yeah. And no, there's tremendous benefit. One of the groups that I didn't hear you mention, but I feel like they could benefit dramatically is accounts receivable or credit management people.
Yeah. That's the operations. I guess I put them into that operations side.
Gotcha.
First, yeah. And so taking that back end credit holes and issues and whatever, and being able to communicate that. In most cases, outside salespeople don't have visibility into the ERP or the back end system, right?
Right.
So if we could serve up key intel from the operations side of that into CRM, which I've done before clients.
Mm-hmm.
It gives them that information at their fingertips, or in most cases on their cell phone before they walk in the door, right?
I feel like, again, I'm going to go back to the credit managers, the AR folks, that having their own set of notes and their own database, really, because I've learned now over the years. And again, I didn't spend a heck of a lot of time in the AR side of our family business, but I've really become accustomed to it now, and spending a lot of time with credit managers and talking about the relationship building side of their business. I mean, I'm always a believer that they are the sales completion specialists in our distribution world, and that they have relationships to manage as well.
Sure. And that's valuable information. So Ben, it's back to what you just said. What checkbox does that put on those two things? It's sharing and leveraging information, right? And one source of the truth, that when I go to an account in CRM, let's say, or down a specific site or location, I can see all the touch points from our inside sales to service. That's another to the operations.
Yeah.
AR. That another thing that I maybe not take phase one in the beginning. I look at with companies, if they have a service arm of technicians out of the field or service people touching, managing the client.
For sure.
Oh my gosh, that is the golden nugget of information that can go in a CRM that can be leveraged by the sales team, because they can get information that salespeople typically can't get.
This episode of Distribution Talk is sponsored by InSQL Distribution Software. InSQL is a fully functional distribution-based software package. I say distribution-based because that's important. Many alternatives out there say they do distribution, but they really aren't very good at it. They're generally watered-down manufacturing packages with a few distribution features tacked on. I only recommend software packages that were purpose-built to serve distribution, and these folks do it very well at a price point many smaller distributors can afford. If you're ready to step up to a fully loaded, scalable distribution package at an affordable price, look no further than InSQL Distribution Software at www.insql.com. That's INXSQL.com. Years ago, I ran across a product. I mean, this is going back a couple of decades at least, that it would be an audio-based call report management. I think if I recall correctly, the product was called Eva. And you would call in, you call this 800 number. There'd be a series of prompts that the salesperson would answer. This ideally was done right after a sales call. You would call in the 800 number and then just, and literally these notes would be transcribed by this group of people in Utah and then, thrown into your CRM. But, and I thought that was actually kind of cool. But if you look at, what is becoming available today, what is your opinion of audio based? I mean,
I mean, I believe, why can't mobile do that? I mean, you've got your mobile app. Okay. Right. So let's go through a use case here. First off, I'm outside salesperson. I have CRM and I've got my mobile app. In preparation, and I think you ought to prep before sales calls, right? CRM has that data.
Sure.
Before preparation. Yeah. I could be sitting in the lobby or the parking lot of the account, going to my cell phone and see all the activity, a 360 view of who my inside salespeople are talking to, what quotes are out there. If I've got ERP integration, what are my recent orders? Okay. Yep. If AR put any notes in, whatever put in, I got it in front of me. So now I walk in armed and dangerous, right? And I can expand that sales call. So maybe I was going to go see 2 people, but now I can see 4 people because I see something. I can be proactive while I'm there and walk in or down the hall and say, hey, Mary, or hey, John, I see you spoke to our inside salesperson last week on this. Anything I do to help? What's the impression of the customer from that side of the business? I mean, my gosh, right?
Right.
So, and then you got voice to text. So you open up an opportunity. You quickly change the expected close date that drives forecasting. You click a button and you speak into it with your call log, and you're done.
Yes. Yeah.
This doesn't have to be that hard.
Right. No, I think people make it too hard, or it's that refusal to change.
Well, it's change management. So again, I said earlier that CRM stands right for customer. So that's another thing I do when I'm out working with clients, and I've got a group of salespeople inside, outside sales, or whoever in the room. I said, what does CRM stand for? And they say, customer relationship management. I said, yeah, you're right. But it also, the real meaning is, in my mind, change management. I'm looking for that R, that right R word. But it's really change management. It's changing the way you do things. And again, people hate change. I get it. Who moved my cheese, whatever you want to say. But it's you've got to position the why. It comes back to the why and painting the picture. If this is a team solution, it's not an outside sales to log your call solution.
Right.
That's one component
Right.
that shares and leverages, but I'm going to ask other people to do the same thing so everyone can share and leverage.
Brian, I think you just touched on something, and I think this is one of those questions, where do these products best benefit? Is it more of an outside sales tool? Is it more of an inside sales tool? Is it more of an operations tool, a service tool, for example? Where do you see the best adoption or the best return on investment?
I mean, again, it's a hard question. I think obviously it instantly goes to outside sales, but if it's positioned just as an outside sales solution, you can have adoption because I think all you're doing is asking me to put in, not get out. So
right.
That I come back to, I strongly recommend any company who's looking at CRM or looking at revamping or redoing or putting a refocus on CRM, you must position it as a team solution. You must position it as everyone who's touching the customer and who have internal customers to each other or on the system. Then you can argue inside sales because they're doing the quotes and we want visibility for the outside salespeople to see the quotes such that it's not buried in a G drive, some folder somewhere and they have out of sight, out of mind. So you got to look at all those touch points and truly position. I know I didn't answer your question specifically, but I don't know.
No, because I think there isn't a great answer, for any one of those. I would agree, that no, you did answer really in that team solution. That's got to be everybody touching the product. Here's something just kind of popped in my head is that, a lot of these ERP systems, in distribution, they have a quasi little bitty, they call it a CRM. It's not a CRM.
No. It's again, that's, you hit a nerve.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Yeah. They're, and again, it's nothing against an ERP. They're good.
They got a lot of things to do.
Right. They're good at what they do, but CRM is a different thing. And if you just call a contact management or an activity log management, call report a CRM, it's
not.
So
no.
I've worked with quite a few clients that wanted to take their ERP CRM and take it. And I said, let's put it through the paces. Let's build the day in the life scenario with the use cases of what we need from the audit, right? Remember we did that audit. That audit drives the whole roadmap and the specification, scope of work of what we want to do with CRM. And let's put them through the paces. Let's see how they answer these questions for complex selling and taking an opportunity and linking more than one account to it and more than one contact to it. And how do you handle the multi-products? And have you set up your product taxonomy needs for the front end side? Most ERP companies have model numbers and they link it to a manufacturer. Well, CRM might need a second or third level product taxonomy to manage because we don't know the model number yet. We're not ready to quote yet.
So, Brian, one of the things I've kind of become slightly obsessed with, and, every once in a while I get on these weird obsessions around, things in the distribution space, and it's dormant account. Yeah, the resurrection of a dormant account. And I feel like CRM is just, purpose built for this activity.
Well, with that, I mean, one of the specs I do, we'll see if we can do it. One of the specs I do is target account management to make sure the system's monitoring our touch points at target accounts. And then the same thing for contacts, and so the system can monitor that and create some dashboard elements to give you these stalled or stagnant accounts that, and is it even worth it? Then another thing I'm a believer in CRM, typically not phase one, but maybe phase two, is going in to do white space analysis at these accounts and making sure we're getting our true breadth of products. Now, you say, well, the ERP can tell us that. Yeah, they can tell us what we sold, but they can't tell us or manage what we should be selling.
Right.
And so taking your product or manufacturing taxonomy and building that in so I can go to an account and see specifically where my gaps or my white space are. And then figure out, is it even worth it to go after that based on capturing intel on what's the market install base there? Who's our competition and all that stuff?
Well, yeah. And I think you're touching on, the worth it. The most expensive people we have in in employment are your field salespeople, and then, followed by a robust inside sales, outbound inside sales. Is there a point in which these systems can begin to make outbound calls, if you will? Yeah. Hey, what have you seen so far? I guess, what have you seen? I'm kind of looking at the future, but maybe it's not a future. I don't know.
Well, and again, I don't know if I'm a futuristic. I mean, I'm so far down in the crawl, walk, run. I'm so far in that crawl, walk stage.
Okay.
Just trying to get our arms around this. But I mean, I see things like, I have implemented things like, obviously, automated emails on quote follow-up, stuff like that. Or maybe, another thing that from the marketing standpoint that I've built with other companies is within a CRM, and I know I've said many times this product taxonomy, but it touches so much. So here's a use case. let's say I get a phone call or I do a lunch and learn, or I go make a sales visit with a person, I can link the product or products that we talked about within that. Well, that then can automatically populate a product interest on a contact, such that I'm building a marketing campaign that I can do some automated marketing rifle shots at what that person's, who's interested in what product, and become very targeted messaging. I mean, we can automate that, but we got to capture the data first. That's the key thing. I mean, we've got to build our house or get our house in order. I just literally had a call this morning with a client who's wanting to do integration with their manufacturer and their distributor, want to do some integration on projects and key accounts. And my comment was, we got to get our house in order first. We got to get the landing spot for this data. We got to make sure that our data governance is clean and how we call things and all that stuff. And I think that also plays into AI. I know AI is a huge topic today, and it will continue to be. I think from the industrial side, what I know, and again, I'm not an expert. I want to be very clear. I'm not an expert on AI, but I believe that most companies are not ready for AI with regards to the reason they don't have their data in line. They don't have their data cleansed, and they're not capturing the input needed and making sure the input is clean to utilize AI. So I think that's an area. And again, I also believe that the industrial market, and I feel I could say this because I feel like I'm in it, is a laggard with regards to all this. When I consider the pharmaceutical or financial services market, I mean, industrial, and hey, I view that as a positive. There's a lot of growth opportunity. It's how companies are going to use this. I don't know if you know this or not, if any conversations we had, get to know each other. I give a class at Texas A&M Industrial Distribution Department on CRM. Yeah. I've been doing it now for probably 8 or 9 years. There's a professor there, Bob Borsch, who him and I built a relationship. Well, he teaches the seniors on sales and sales management, and he's incorporated CRM into that. And I love it. I love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I say when I first give this class is, I said, what am I here for? And their comment is, well, Brian, you're going to talk about CRM. You're going to talk about this. I said, yeah, I'm going to talk about that, but that's not my real reason. My real reason for being here, I say, is to help you get a good job or advance yourself within the industrial marketplace. And I said, I want you to be prepared to talk to your potential companies that are going to hire you or looking to hire you. I want you to talk to them and make sure you understand what CRM is about, such that you can be a leader in their company going forward with CRM.
Right. Because it is such a, it's such a challenge in most of the companies I've dealt with that, it's, nobody feels like they've really got this one nailed down. I mean, there's a couple, especially in the industrial space, I've seen a couple good ones, but most people, they invested and now they don't know what the heck they got.
Well, that's this. It's not that there's no silver bullet. It's hard. This is hard.
This is hard. Absolutely.
This is hard. Change management is hard. Mm-hmm. But that's why it's important to have a CEO for CRM that's driving this and understands the bigger vision and can, create a roadmap of what this is all about. And that's, not to be a commercial here. And that's what I've helped companies on. And that's what gets me excited. It's companies that want to change. If you're not one, I say this all the time as well. If you're not wanting to change the way you're doing things right now, don't do this right now.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah. Don't go through the headache. Yeah.
And the money and the time and affecting your team and don't do it.
So you keep referring to the CEO of CRM. This is a good segue for us. You are writing a book with that title. Is that correct?
I am. I'm excited about it. I wrote a book probably about 6 or 7 years ago with Lindsay at 3 Aspen Media. She's fantastic. But,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. She helped me write the first book called ROI from CRM.
Yeah.
The subtitle was the key. And the subtitle of the book was ROI from CRM. It's about a process, not technology. And it's about the process changes that you're going to be willing to do within your company, which is hard. But this next book is called, we haven't honed in on exact title yet. It's supposed to be out for the first part of next year. But it's going to be like, who is your CEO for CRM and why is it important to have one? It's going to be a roadmap to help that person or that group to understand the key things that they need to do in this journey, no matter where they are in the journey.
So the first book, I just have to touch on this because it was a funny story. It was born out of a New Year's resolution. Mm-hmm. Would you mind telling the story?
Yeah. Okay.
It's a funny story, man. You gotta.
So we have a group of friends. There's 5 couples that we, for the last 15, 20 years, I don't know, lose track of time. We've been going to dinner on New Year's Eve. And one of our traditions is at the end of dinner, after a couple drinks and good food, right? We go around the table. Everyone has to give a New Year's resolution. And, and it can't be lose weight, exercise more.
Right.
It has to be something that, so they came around to me and I said, I'm going to write a book. And I'll never forget. My wife looked at me. She turned and looked at me and said, you're not going to make any money on the book. And then my friends were saying, well, is it going to have a lot of pictures? It's going to be a coloring book.
Be a coloring book. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, no, time out, everyone. First off, then I looked at my wife, I said, it's not the money that I'll make on the book. It's the doors that the book will open. And I have to tell you, Jason, that was a game changer for me is, again, I'm making I'm not off in the Caribbean somewhere on the book sales. It's opened a lot of doors, and it's allowed me to, which is another night for me, where I am in the stage of life. It's allowing me to maybe give feedback and give tricks and trades that I've found out through this journey, and hopefully help other companies, with some nuggets of information that remove some speed bumps for them. And that's rewarding for me. I mean, that's just, getting involved with clients that truly get this and want to do this. I build relationships. That's what keeps me going every day.
Yeah, it's a great process. I have never actually put it in book form. I've written a boatload of articles, and really it is. I try to remind everybody, these are opinion pieces.
Yeah.
These are not facts. These are my opinions and my experience. That's all you're getting out of me. That's all I'm sharing. And then, ultimately with this show, I mean, that's really what you're getting. You're getting, my opinions and the guests' opinions. And, but I think it is that way of giving back. And I can appreciate that. That is absolutely what drives me to do this, is the giving back. And if we inspire someone to just do things a little bit differently one day, that's enough.
Well, so let me say this real quick. I had, I think it's been 2. So it's not a lot, but it's, I say I give these classes at Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I've had 2 students that I taught have come back to me now, and they're in the real world, right? They're in this industrial sales, and they've reached back out to me, or they've made some connections for me, or they commented that, hey, now we're doing this. Or they've just been, it came back. It came back.
Comes back tenfold, man. I absolutely believe that. So absolutely believe that. So, Brian, how does somebody get in touch with you and get a hold of you to maybe engage your services, to start down the journey, or maybe even revamp their current CRM program?
Again, everyone's on LinkedIn, so you can look me up on LinkedIn, Brian Gardner. And LinkedIn, the company that I started is called SalesProcess360. So SalesProcess360.com. My email is brian.gardner, and it's Brian with an I, .Gardner at SalesProcess360. And what they mean is, I think it's even on my LinkedIn. You want to give me a call? It's 504-957-8499. I don't know,
For sure. No, we'll make sure all these things are in the show notes, to make sure, because I mean, really, this is a barrier for a lot of companies. This is a tough one, as you said. Honestly, stepping back and having someone help guide them, I mean, that's a tremendous service. So I absolutely believe in what you're doing.
Well, I just had a client just 2 weeks ago. I rolled out CRM to their team, and he made a comment to me, which struck me a little bit the way he said. I wasn't thinking like that, but he said, Brian, he actually got up in the front of this team. We did training through 3 of their offices. He got in front of the team and told people, who said, Brian is kind of like our architect and our interior designer for this. That's how he referred to me. He said, Brian's telling us where the walls need to be and where the windows need to be and what should we think about for this. And he said, that we wouldn't even have thought about, or we wouldn't know that if he did that, it's going to affect this 6 months from now. So that's rewarding to me. And then I'll end with this for companies who are on the fence. I ask companies all the time, and without fail, I get the same answers for the last 20 years of doing. I asked the question, I said, what is your competitive edge? And every time I get the same answers: our people, our products, our service, our experience, our knowledge, data. And I said, that's fantastic. I believe that's just what you need to play the game. Okay. So I asked the question again, what's your competitive edge? And where I'm going with this is obvious. I believe that CRM, if implemented properly, can be your competitive edge by better managing the front end of the sales cycle. Back to those 2 things: better managing the front end of the sales cycle, putting process, procedure, fiddling, make sure we're going in the right areas for the right accounts for the right products, and putting a system to share and leverage information system. Those 2 things can be your competitive edge if implemented properly. But it's not easy, because you're dealing with change.
Yeah. Well, hey, Brian, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this. It's been a very interesting conversation. I wish you all the success with the new book. That'll be a great endeavor. But again, hey, thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Well, thank you, Jason. And again, hopefully we imparted some wisdom or some nuggets of information, right? That can
at least got them thinking. That's all I'm asking. So just get them thinking. So, all right, Brian, thanks again, man. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, the Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.